Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order, and first order of business, the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we live and work in Mi'kmaq as a steward of the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. And before we move the agenda, I have a change. In the presentation, we're moving topic 4, and that's the presentation, that's winter clearing standards. We're moving that to number 2. I think that's correct, Tara?
Yep, just moving that to the second one, and then everything else will drop down.
So I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Coolin, seconded by Councillor Church. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. All right, I guess we'll start. Topic 1, I don't know who's doing the presentation. Our good friend Garth. You have the floor, Mr. Garth.
Great. Thank you. So, yes.
Oh,
so,
I'm sorry, before we start.
Yep.
I missed the approval of the minutes
No
from
problem.
June 19th, sorry.
No problem.
Motion to approve. Moved by Councillor, sorry, Bremner. Sorry. Seconder?
Second.
Second by Councillor Church. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Now we'll move on to Garth.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. So, what I have to discuss this morning is an initial set of slides for coastal regulations in the municipality. I guess just jumping right into it. In the introduction, we'll cover some of the sort of background here. So coastal protection obviously has been something that's been discussed provincially for well over a decade. As Council is familiar with, the Coastal Protection Act was proclaimed, however, and that was proposed to regulate the entire province with a standard set of coastal setbacks and regulations and exemptions and options for who could build and where and how close. However, the regulations that were intended to accompany the act were never implemented, and then following that, the province announced that they were not going to proceed with the Coastal Protection Act. So at that point, the province hired Upland Planning and Design, who produced some draft policies and draft bylaw language for municipalities to consider to adopt as part of their own land use planning standards. And so we have now received that, and with that understanding, Council did add coastal protection to our strategic priorities list this year, and we were essentially waiting for those model bylaws from the province to be released. So those have now come, and I've taken a look at that, and many of the slides that we're going to talk about originate from that. I will say the model bylaws, in my opinion, were very helpful and useful and provided a lot of good thinking and talking points, not just on here's what a regulation could be, but how to get to it, and even talking about engagement, which is something we'll talk about towards the end of the slides here. So so without further ado, this will just be a high-level overview on some of what I've called the core concepts around sea level rise, just to introduce everybody, which again, probably fairly familiar. So the first being sea level rise. So climate change, melting ice caps, and localized subsidence, so that's essentially local land that's sinking, all contribute to a rise in the mean sea level compared when we compare it to the shore. Regulations aim to address and mitigate sea level rise really need to look at the lifetime of a development or a structure, which usually is an 80 to 100 year time frame, and then on top of that, we're looking at a worst case scenario by the end of the lifetime of that building. So those are kind of the way we need to structure our regulations if we're intending to protect them over the course of the lifetime of the building. And you can see just an example here on the right that, since 1880, global sea level has increased an average of 21 to 24 centimeters. So everybody can picture a ruler. I mean, that's almost a complete ruler. So it's significant. And then you combine that with waves and some of the other things we're going to talk about here in just a moment. So the next sort of core concept is storm surge. And so this is the impact of wave action, wind, tidal phase and local bathymetry, which is essentially the ocean floor, which all contribute to a temporary increase in water level that can result in flooding, washouts, and related damage to properties and structures. Again, on the right, the image there sort of just indicates, so you can see the normal highest tide level with the top blue line, and then the storm surge with wind, waves, and as well as depending on the bathymetry, the ocean floor, that's going to have an impact on how those waves rise up over the bank and potentially create flooding issues. The next one, erosion. And so this is the impacts of wave action, storms, and local geography, which determine the rate of local erosion. And this one in particular is an interesting one when we're thinking about trying to regulate it, because the local rate of erosion can vary greatly, even within a small section of coastline, let alone the entirety of the municipality. So you think about a granite bluff that's going to virtually erode at a millimeter a year, and then you think of a sandy low sloping hill that could be eroding at a meter or more a year. And the image here kind of demonstrates that. So you'll have these different features where you've got significant erosion on one side and then different geology and features that create. So again, trying to come up with regulations, good to understand the problem that we're looking at. And the last thing here, which is still I've included in the core concepts, but it's a little bit different in terms of this is not so much of a threat, but more of a something that we want to be aware of and potentially look to protect. And this is coastal wetlands, basically, which are very sensitive ecosystems. They're extremely productive, and I'm not an ecologist or a biologist, but even from what I've read and understand, even comparing to inland wetlands, coastal wetlands have an even higher level of productivity and importance in our sort of entire ecosystem. On top of that, obviously because of development pressures around the coast and just the conditions that are required to create a coastal wetland, there are very limited areas that these can occur, and some have been threatened or removed over the years. And on top of providing benefits to wildlife, coastal wetlands also provide an effective mitigation against many of the issues that we've talked about here, flooding, storm surge, and erosion. They can temporarily store a significant amount of water to help with flooding issues. And we even see in sort of leading mitigation measures, like in Mahone Bay with the living shoreline, they're essentially trying to replicate a coastal wetland in order to protect the coastline. So that's again something, as we're looking at regulations, that we'll want to think about. So moving on from sort of the concepts into some of the approval mechanisms that we can, and again, just to be clear, this is all an overview. We're not asking for a decision at the end of the day on please pick the 3 regulations that you want. This is to introduce the topic, and then we'll talk about engagement at the end and before we would think to come back to actually ask for any decisions. So an overlay, fairly familiar concept here. We use our lakefront overlay, which again is something that we map and we show it on a map. So every lake, or in this case, the areas of the coast that we were looking to have regulations would be included with an overlay. Some of the benefits, it applies across all zones. So you take whatever your underlying zoning is, and then you just add the overlay together, and those are your rules for development. And the one consideration here, and again, nothing happens in a vacuum, as council understands. So council's also been having discussions around the watercourse setback and potential relief options, and there is a piece of that discussion that is talking potentially about having permits in the general basic zone. So just a point that this would also factor into that. If we don't proceed with permits in the general basic zone, this would create another overlay like the lakefront overlay. So if you're in either of those, you need permits, but if you're not, you don't. So we'll work that all out, but I just wanted to make that one point. Otherwise, I think the overlay is probably one of the leading options that we want to look at. Then another option would be to create a coastal zone or coastal zones, plural. And so this would obviously be a new zone, new color on the map that would apply near the coast. The downside that I see to this in the way that Chester's zoning is currently set up is it would either require a whole bunch of new coastal zones, or everybody along the coast would have the same zoning. And if you look at our current zoning map, from one end of the municipality to the other, we have a variety of zones that touch the coast. We have mixed use, we have general basic, we have single unit, we have SR1, SR2, so asking everybody to go to one zone would be probably not the way to go. Creating 15 coastal zones is probably also not the way to go. So I think in different municipalities that could work very well if you didn't have zoning implemented, but where we are with our planning regulations, I don't think that's going to be the best fit. And then the final option here, which, and again, these all came out of the model bylaw, would be just a simple set of text regulations where there's nothing on a map and you just have a setback or provision in the land use bylaw. Again, likely not going to recommend this option. It can be simple, but it can also, it's very easy to miss if you don't have a map in there. So in terms of the public understanding the regulations that they have to work with, we probably would favor something that has a visual element as well. Again, as will be familiar in terms of approval mechanisms, there will also be options and considerations on what type of planning process we ask for in order to either develop at the coast or potentially on a relief mechanism if we have an option to go closer. So development permit would be the basic way we would look at this. We would add regulations within presumably the overlay that would add additional requirements before a development permit was issued. Site plan approval would be an option. We could either have that for all development or for particular size or classes of uses. And as has been discussed before with site plan, if we were going to go down that route, we would probably want to look at some specific site plan criteria for coastal development because our existing site plan criteria is sort of general in nature and might not get into all the aspects that we wanted to regulate. And then finally, of course, is the development agreement. Again, very preliminary thoughts. I'm thinking that this might be a good tool to leave for things that we haven't yet considered. Anything that's not listed in the bylaw would potentially be allowed by development agreement, which would give us more ability to regulate those uses. So those would be, as usual, our 3 approval mechanisms that we'll be looking at. Moving on to potential actual regulation or regulatory options. The first, and I would say, in my opinion, the most significant would be a vertical elevation requirement. So typically this is determined using a variety of data. So you take the highest tide, the storm surge, the sea level rise, you model that for 2100 or whatever your time frame is, 80 years, and then that becomes the vertical elevation. It's designed to protect against flooding, storm surge, and sea level rise, and primarily it's looking to protect life safety, so people in habitable spaces where people are going to be living and spending a lot of time. It also has the effect of protecting usually the most valuable asset on the property being the dwelling. But again, I think the primary focus there is protecting people and life safety. So the regulation would typically apply to new uses that require habitable floor area. So that's essentially living area. So, storage, basement storage, and that kind of thing wouldn't count, but anywhere where you have bedrooms or kitchens or people will be, living at it regularly. So that habitable floor would have to be built at or above the minimum elevation. And a benefit to this is the regulation generally works well as a single metric spread across the municipality because unlike the erosion factors, the sea level rise, there is some local differences, but generally a standard vertical elevation across the municipality would work well because it is less site specific. A second, and again, I would say with these could all be individually implemented or they could be implemented as a package or a set of regulations. So the next one would be a horizontal setback. This one determined on a variety of factors specific to the municipality and the coastline. It's designed primarily to protect against coastal erosion. However, there is also the opportunity here, if a vegetated buffer is required, to have some environmental protections from runoff, just like we have in some of our inland setbacks. The primary objective for a horizontal setback in my mind would be to seek to protect structures for the expected life of the building. So again, that's that 80 to 100-year time frame. The trickier part about this is it's more difficult to apply effectively without either really detailed coastline information or site-specific analysis, because as we showed on that image, depending on your coastline and what your geology is under your property, it's going to greatly affect the rate of erosion. And so asking somebody to stay way back on a property that's not subject to erosion may be a big ask. And then in the other case, our setback may still be significant, but not enough to get to that 80 or 100-year timeline if they have really soils that are eroding at a high rate. So that's a trickier one, and again, there'll be more to discuss on all of these. Another important piece to this that we do want to keep in mind and think about is the exemptions list. So this is what I've just come up with quickly. I certainly expect and hope to add to this as we go through engagement and discussions with council and PAC. So things like commercial and industry, so fish processing, wharves and slipways, scientific research facilities and uses. On the residential side, things like boat sheds, they need to be close to the water to be effectively used, so that would not be the intent to protect it. And again, there's less value in a boat shed. There's not going to be people living in it. If it does get taken out, theoretically, that's less of a concern. Other things like, parks and recreational uses, boardwalks, government infrastructure, we may need to have pumping stations in an area where we wouldn't allow someone to build a home. We don't want to prevent ourselves from doing those. And as I mentioned earlier, I think, at least for consideration, to keep a development agreement option open, I would propose that to be for non-residential uses. I don't think a residential use has to be built right to the water line, but this would be for anything that we miss from our exemption list. A new kind of industry comes along or something that we hadn't considered, and we say, we've got a path for you without having to amend the bylaw, and our development agreement policies would ensure that it's developed in a responsible way that protects the environment as well as the buildings. So another important consideration for regulations is what we do or how we treat existing structures. And this is, I've said, it balances risk, rationality, and community support for new regulations. So there are, I've given the bullet points here kind of give three options from one extreme to the other, but there obviously would be different options in between there as well. So the most risk-averse option, and I have some examples from other municipalities, all of which use at least one municipality uses at least one of these bullets. So there's a variety of options of regulations out there. So the most risk-averse option is to prevent any expansion or significant reconstruction unless the new habitable areas are at or above the minimum elevation. As a compromise in between, we could allow some expansion of an existing structure. We could say you could double the size of the footprint or 50%. We could have some allowed exemption where you would be allowed to build at the existing elevation and not to our new standard. Or on the other end, the least risk-averse option, but potentially the most easily accepted by current property owners, would be to allow unlimited expansion, reconstruction at or above the existing elevation. So new structures would still have to be at whatever our vertical setback was, but if you had an existing structure on a property, you could expand it within the regulations without having to go up. The image on the side is kind of just a little thing. This is a balancing act, I think. So between wanting to provide really good, strong regulations, but also again, politically and just in different communities, there's going to be a different appetite for different levels of regulation. I think many of these things that we've talked about, but certainly this one is one that we'll want to get feedback on when we go for public engagement to see what the levels of appetite are for that. So as I mentioned, as we often do, I wouldn't call this a complete jurisdictional scan, but I've taken a look at the municipalities basically in our area surrounding us on most sides, and this can give us an idea of what's already in place. So starting with the region of Queens, they have a 2.8 meter elevation for finished floor areas, standard list of exemptions, boathouses, fishing sheds, utility buildings, public parks, and conservation. And they actually have the most stringent in terms of expansion. So existing structures cannot expand unless the expansion is at the new elevation. So theirs is the most stringent. Theirs, I believe, is also the oldest in terms of being in place for the longest, and you'll see this as we go through in the vertical elevations. The vertical elevations keep going up. So whoever's the newest, the modeling is showing it's a higher. So you'll notice those numbers as we change as we go. The District of Lunenburg, so they use an overlay map for theirs. They have a 3.97 meter vertical elevation for habitable space. Institutional uses are prohibited in the coastal area. Existing structures, they've kind of taken the balanced approach, so existing structures can basically double in size before they have to meet the new elevation requirement, but it is limited to that. And Lunenburg also was one of the few that has also a 30-meter horizontal setback, which includes a 15-meter vegetated buffer. So theirs is probably the most stringent in terms of the setbacks and the buffering. They do have an option to reduce that buffer down to 15 meters, but the vegetated buffer has to remain. So you can, and that's with a QP report, as we've talked about on our freshwater setbacks. Town of Mahone Bay has a 3.5 meter vertical elevation. They also have something interesting that I haven't seen elsewhere, not sure, and would certainly look to Sam for how, binding this is, but they require folks within the coastal, property owners within the coastal flood risk area to sign an attestation acknowledging the risk of development there. And they also allow existing structures to be replaced and repaired, but no expansion below 3.5. So similar to Queens, Town of Mahone Bay is quite stringent on expansions. Halifax Regional Municipality, and I would say I looked specifically at sort of the Hubbards area, the area that borders us. They have a lot of planning bylaws, so it could be different on the Eastern Shore, for example. I didn't look specifically there, but at least bordering us, they have a 3.8 meter vertical elevation, and they are actually the most permissive in terms of expansion. So they allow unlimited expansion if you have an existing structure without having to meet that new elevation. West Hants does not have any specific coastal regulations, so similar to how we are here now, whatever your rear yard setback is, 5 feet or something like that would be your setback. Kings uses the coastal zones, so they have a couple of coastal zones. I believe that's an older regulation as well. So they use a horizontal setback, as you can see there, 75 feet for a main building, 50 feet for an accessory, and then boathouses and fishing uses can go to 4 feet. However, interestingly, in Kings, there are areas that do touch the coast that are not under a coastal zone, and so in that case, it would be similar to us in West Hants, where it would just be your rear yard setback that applies. So as you can see, there's a variety, and I think a lot of it has to do with the timing that the regulations were brought in. Again, you can see the numbers going up, but again, there is a mix in terms of especially in terms of the existing structures and how those are treated. You can see it's definitely not the same everywhere. So, public engagement options. Presuming that council is not absolutely sure where they want to go right now, after all that information, staff are suggesting that we consider obviously some public engagement beyond the standard process that is required in our municipal planning strategy. I am absolutely open to suggestions and discussion on this, but what I thought probably would be a good fit would be 2 rounds of engagement, with the first focused on a similar slideshow really to what we've gone through here. Engagement on the threats, and then gathering community input, concerns, and in particular the desired level of regulation. I know when the District of Lunenburg went out and did theirs, that was a key piece of what they asked was what level of regulation, and they kind of broke it into several categories to say sort of 1, 2, and 3. And my impression is that was received well, and hopefully will help with buy-in at the other end. So that's the intent. So then we would likely return either to council or PAC with a set of draft regulations for discussion, and then go out for a second round where we actually have the draft regulations and say, here's what we're thinking of proposing, and allow specific feedback on those. Again, presuming, but would be happy to change this, probably would want to do 1 meeting per district for each of those rounds, so it would be 2 meetings per district, but spread out with some time in between. And we would likely do a mail out of the schedule across the board to every household. Once we had the schedule for round 1, we'd send a mail out, and then once we had the schedule for round 2, we'd send a mail out there. But yes, more than happy to take any input, questions. I know this was a lot, so that is the end of my slides. Yeah.
Sorry, give me a second here. There you go.
Yeah, no, I just sort of, I mean, there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I like to go about it with the simplest method possible for both the public and for the staff to administer. But I'm wondering about the public engagement before we actually have any clue as to the direction we want to go. I mean,
Yep.
I wonder whether or not we shouldn't give you some direction on, based on, we've got to administer it and the public's got to, you know,
Yep.
that kind of stuff. Is at least some sense of where we want to go before you go to the public.
Sure, yeah, I mean,
That's just what I'm thinking. I don't know.
Councilor Vino.
Thank you. I made notes.
Yes,
How much do I have time? Time do I have? Sorry. So, in terms of risk, different areas of our municipality have different amounts of risk. So you can imagine in the Aspetogan where you have granite escarpments, the risk is low. Usually the topography is really high. And maybe out in Western Shore where it's lower and siltier, we can imagine a situation where you may have inland flooding from, storm events or possibly erosion. So one size fits all, just like when you get those one size fits all hats, they rarely fit anybody. I would suggest that we need something flexible enough to match the risk. That would be thoughtful regulation. So a number of the examples that you pulled from other jurisdictions, they have like just uniform setbacks. I personally am compelled not to want to do something that's universal because it doesn't usually address the risk in all situations. Sometimes you have riskier places, sometimes you have places with, you're 50 feet above the water and on a piece of granite. That is never going to be a problem ever. Why do you have to be 75 feet back? Those are valid questions that I think if I were that property owner, I would ask. So a thoughtful regulation, I think is worth working towards. The original Coastal Protection Act that the province was working on relied on what they called their SURFA tool, which was administered by, like a septic system design. It'd be administered by like an engineer, land surveyor, or geoscientist, or other qualified person. It was really, but those were the groups that they sort of intended it for. And you just hire this person and they would evaluate the type of geology you have, which is important if you're thinking about erosion, the topography, the fetch of the ocean in front of you, and a number of other factors, and they would feed it into this model, and it would predict the amount of erosion. The tool would predict the amount of erosion you'd have in 100 years, and give you information on what it recommended for a setback. Very useful. The tool was complete. It's available.
it is available.
It is available. I have it if you want a copy.
The last time we reached out to the province, they indicated it wasn't going to be available, so that's
Wow.
good to know.
Well, I've been told it's been
Great.
made available, and if it's not, I'll give you a copy. Perfect.
Created it.
I didn't create it, no. It was created by CBCL. They had a contract. It cost our taxpayers of our province millions of dollars, no doubt, to produce. And it's very sophisticated. And I think overall, I think all the people that consulted on it thought it was very well thought through, because it was variable. If you were in the North Shore where you can lose, sometimes like 5 meters in one winter, you had huge setbacks. In places like Duncan's Cove outside Halifax where it's just all granite and that's all there is, You know, maybe you only need 1 meter setback, you know, because that's the risk. So that, I would prefer an approach like that. I think that's the direction that our entire province was headed. And I know we like just to say, you know, it's easier to maybe in some ways to administer if you just say, build on your lot if you want, but you gotta be 70 feet back or whatever. But it doesn't fit very well a lot of times, and it can create a lot of hardship for people. Especially, you know, some people, as you can imagine, would have purchased properties. These are their dream properties. They had hoped to develop them in some fashion, and suddenly, like that, their dreams are dashed. Like everything they've worked towards their whole life is gone. So this is very important. In terms of allowing a development permit option as a sort of a way around this, I don't know. I feel I have mixed feelings about that, because we don't want, we'd have to be very specific on what we would agree to as part of the criteria to even apply for that development permit. I can imagine a scenario where, you know, it's low-lying and maybe you don't have the types of soils that would, you know, that you have the types of soils that would erode quickly. So you would require a large horizontal setback. But if the plan, maybe the developer's plan is to sheet pile the entire property, you know, so that, you know, you're way up high and you've got these steel sheet piles, and, you know, it's very, I don't know what kind of situation you'd be in that would happen, but, you know, in that extreme circumstance, maybe there would be, you know, you're changing the nature of what the property is then. But I think that one, you know, maybe I could be swayed. I'm kind of leaning towards, like, I don't really, if we have a thoughtful upfront planning process, it mitigates the reason, it mitigates the concern about the DA. You know, alternatively, if we had a really dumbed down setback requirement of, say, some dimension, then maybe we would entertain a DA based on analysis using a SURFA tool or something like that. So that may be another option. Anyway, so there's two ways there. The vertical elevation requirement, you know, I think that, as you pointed out, and I think rightly so, should be uniform across the municipality of some amount. You know, they do tend to be in the same range, although the exact amount seems to be a bit arbitrary as you move around the province. It's probably gonna end up be somewhere around 3.5 meters, 10 feet above the ordinary high water mark. That's what I would expect. And, you know, if I had my property there, I would expect that too. You know, you should be able to improve your property. If you're a bit low, you should be able to, you know, within the confines of like provincial regulation, you build up your property or put your building up to escape that datum if you need to. But I think that's probably okay. I've worked in jurisdictions where they have, like in Queens, for example, where you can't modify an existing structure that's already below the requirement. That can create a lot of hardship. For example, one case I know of, like the gentleman wanted to add a porch on his house, but he couldn't do it because he was already, his old pre-existing house existed. I don't really agree with that. To me, we have lots of cases in all kinds of areas, like in the building code and everything that, where you're you're modifying an existing structure, and there's an understanding that, you know, we wouldn't build this thing in that way now, but it's here, and you're being allowed to modify it in some fashion. Even to the point of replacement buildings, you know, there might be a requirement maybe to raise the building to a certain elevation, but the horizontal setback, I can see that as being like really oppressive. You know, if you have, you know, a house that has, you know, let's say there was a snow load that just crushed the building. We had the snow like we had in 2015, and it crushed the house, you know, and just say, sorry, you can't build your house anymore because the lot's too small. Like, that would be pretty devastating, I think, to that family, don't you think? Yeah, so I think you have to have some sort of leniency on those that have built on sites that predated this regulation. Yeah, so. Now, finally, in terms of engagement, you know, I know we love, staff endeavors hard to try to read our minds and figure out what it is that we're gonna demand. In this case, I don't know if by district actually makes sense, you know, this is mostly impacting the coastline. I think a series of meetings along the coast would probably make more sense than having one at the New Ross School.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's my perspective. I can be, you know, I don't feel strongly about it. I'm not from New Ross, but I think that, you know, having a number of meetings along the coast probably would be the best and use of our resources. All right, that's it for now.
Thank you. Councillor Church.
Thank you. Just a comment, I think you have some really good points, and I would be more apt to be in the middle as to one extreme over the other. This is going to be a big change. But I'm wondering, does this address in any way like modifications to the coastline? What I see is some people haul in loads of rocks and whatever to make a site, and it can impact the neighbors in a big way. Or what happened in Lunenburg Municipality where people hauled in rocks and it changed like the beach area. So would this regulation help in any way with that? Because I think that's something that.
Not really, unfortunately. And basically, our authority stops at the high water mark, and most of that work is done beyond. And so it's Department of Natural Resources who issues permits for infill and rock armoring and those kind of things. You're right; they definitely can have an impact on neighboring properties, but no. So this wouldn't really get at that, no. And my understanding is we don't have really authority in that area to.
Because that does really annoy a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it isn't, doesn't look well sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't control.
Can I ask you?
Sure. Tara?
Yeah, I'm just gonna turn my mic on. So I do think that it's important to remind council that this is proposing regulation through our land use bylaw.
Yes.
So under the land use bylaw, what we're regulating are the use of land in connection with development, right? So what Councillor Church is getting at is often happening or could happen before a development permit is applied for and the land is altered, and then they come to us and say, okay, I need a development permit, and our land use regulations kick in.
Right.
There is ability to regulate through an external bylaw, and if it was above the high water mark, we potentially could do that.
Yes.
It would be different than talking about land use regulations through our planning. It would be a separate bylaw, and it would only apply to above high water mark, right? So those creating a new property because somebody has a water lot, that wouldn't be something we could control.
Yeah.
But if somebody was armoring, say, on their property above the high water mark, we could potentially have a separate bylaw, I think, that would address that. Is that correct, Sam?
We could, but we could, but if they're also infilling below the high water mark.
Right, that's
then-
exactly.
But then our jurisdiction extends, to cover the infill,
Right.
Once it's built.
once
And
it's
that-
filled.
yeah,
So,
that's
so,
right.
so we
Yeah.
can, so we can address the motivation sometimes for infilling.
Right,
If their
yes.
intention is to go put a house on it or a building on it.
And that is, it hasn't been tested yet, but that is in the new village bylaw. We did take that approach so that any land that's created by infill automatically gets zoned, a zone that really is not gonna allow anything to be built on it. So I think it's kind of a novel approach, but we're trying that. So we could potentially look to extend that municipally
Yeah.
or a bylaw to regulate anything above the high water mark.
And that's why this type of conversation, I think, is important before we go out, so we can
That's
understand
right.
what is council's intention on putting coastal regulations in, what are we trying to prevent, protect,
Right.
whatever that is, what are we trying to regulate, right? I think these conversations are important to have.
Yeah.
Councillor Connors.
Thank you. So in terms of the public engagement schedule or strategy around getting out to each of those 7 districts, I also would agree with the comments around, you know, not necessarily the need to have 14 meetings or 7 times 2, right?
Yep.
Would think that if we looked reasonably at, you know, Hubbard's, Aspetogan, Chester, Chester Basin, Western Shores,
Yep.
one almost, really. If people know the dates, we advertise it.
Yep.
I think that would be very reasonable, in my opinion. And in getting to your point, or your comments, I'm sorry, around the mail-out, the direct mail-out.
Yeah.
Could I ask if that mail-out, the thought maybe would it be to the entirety of the municipality? Because then we would
Yes,
capture
exactly.
those that
Yeah.
want to be engaged.
Because anybody would be welcome to come
Exactly.
to any of the sessions.
And I would
absolutely.
encourage that
Yes.
in my publication that I do in my community, just to say, right?
Yep.
Heads up.
Because
Don't
I mean,
forget.
I'm sure we do have folks that
Yeah.
live in the New Ross area that work on the coast,
Absolutely,
right? So
right?
it's not, yeah,
Of course,
exactly.
yes.
Yeah.
So with that mail out too, I know with the growth strategy, when we advertise those dates, people that weren't able to make a certain date, they could go to another location, another date. It wasn't by geography, right? So, yeah.
Yes,
So
yeah.
therefore, we could make sure that people knew about the entirety of
Yeah.
that schedule. Another comment from me would be the in-between, the first round and then going back out and maybe having the meeting with either PAC or council. When we were in the heart of the municipal plan review, we had a joint meeting
That's right.
of the Planning Advisory
Yes.
Committee and Municipal Council. One, it was at 5 o'clock, or it was convenient for everybody, I think. So that would be my suggestion as well, that maybe we look at that, having a joint meeting, PAC and council, if it made sense.
Sure.
Yeah, that's it, thanks.
Councillor Coolin.
Oh, thank you. Just a couple of points that I'm pointing off of everybody else. Sharon had brought something to my attention, which, I'm pretty passionate about. It's, the rocks and the boulders, creating a livable environment. That effectively changes the water, it affects the ecosystem. And if we're not responsible, and that is not in our jurisdiction, that it's Department of Natural Resources. But at the end of the day, we still give out the DAs. Like, we still say, okay, you can build now. So it looks upon us in the community that we are allowing the development agreements to happen, right? And I understand that most of the general public don't understand that there's 2 different variables going on at the same time. But the perception is that you put rocks in there, like, there's several spots in my district that people, are pretty well up in arms, that it's happening, and it's already happened.
Right.
And, that's the point that we're always trying to make, that we're also protecting not the neighbors, but the ecosystem as well, And I know we're not directly involved in it, but if there was like Tara had mentioned, which I'm glad she brought that point up, if we had a specific bylaw for that, it might give us a better look
Yep.
and a better feel of, what our roles are. Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? It's complicated stuff, very complicated. I don't know, I have my own personal feelings about this legislation, but that's another matter. We're forced to move on it, so. Yeah, but anyway, it's very complicated. I like, actually, the tool that Andre spoke about. I just like to, Andre, how would that work? So, if somebody basically wants to build somewhere, or would you have that in place first? You'd have to, probably. Sorry.
So, the way the tool was intended to work is, if you're going to develop a property, for example, right now, if you hired me to go and help you to develop a property, or any engineer or QP, if it were not serviced by sewer, for example, you would have a test pit dug, and you would look at the type of soil, and you would design a septic system, and you would get paperwork that proves that this can work and that it satisfies all the rules. In the same fashion, this tool is used to assess what the risk is on site if you have a tidal site. So it gives the elevation, it shows where that minimum elevation is on the site in terms of if we were to set 3.5 meters or 3.2 meters or whatever. And then it also gives a prediction model based on a number of variables on how much erosion you would expect to see over 100 years. And then it gives a horizontal setback from the coastline. And then that is just basically consolidated into like a 2-page little report at the end that the person, just like the septic permit, would come when they go to make application for a building permit. They would come with those documents in the same fashion. So most of these places are unserviced, except for maybe around Chester Village and maybe in Chester Base and stuff. But many of them are unserviced, so you're coming with already the homeowner knows that they have to do some pre-work before they apply for a building permit. That's commonplace. It just is just one more consideration that if you have a special property like this, you have this other special consideration. You have to ensure that your proposed build site is outside of this horizontal setback, and it varies based on what the site is.
I love that idea. If there's any way we can put that into the bylaw or the zone, which is what you guys do, but I think that other than doing what they did in Mahone Bay is signing an attestation.
Yeah.
And that's obviously
People usually can't.
to protect the town from liability, obviously. So that would be the only other thing that would work in our municipality is to get whoever's gonna build there to sign this attestation. But I really like that idea. That's a great
And
idea.
in terms of cost, like so the predicted cost, it'd be the same kind of thing that you do for a septic system. Like, you go to site, you do this assessment, you take the information back, and you process it, and make the little drawing, and the little report that goes with it would be very repeatable, like kind of a work, and that thing becomes the thing. And that was the intent. It was supposed to
Well,
be.
it was a good, yeah.
I'm not trying to advocate for it for any reason other than I was involved in the original development of this that the province was working on, so I'm quite familiar with it. But actually, Bergen Survey down in South Shore, they were involved in its development and others. So like it's not that complicated.
No, and I think that's a great idea, and I think when we do the public engagement, this is something that's gotta be, because I think it's a great idea. I mean, I really do.
I think there, sorry to belabor, but the only thing I would say is like, I think it allows the application of real, actual situational information to be applied. So we can still prepare a standard setback, and if that's satisfied, then that's okay for all situations. And if you're okay having your building back that far, then you don't need to bother with any of this. But if you want it closer, then you need to have this assessment done. It doesn't then force people to use this mechanism and get a qualified person in to help. If they're happy enough to be, they've got a long strip that's like a mile long and it touches the coast and triggers this requirement, but they're gonna build up by the road, well then, you can say, okay, well, we're well outside the clearance requirement, so no problem. But if they wanna be right down against it, then potentially they could use some sort of actual real life thing. That's what I would suggest we might wanna look at.
Warden Weber.
Yeah, no, and it all makes sense. Just, if we want to get down the road of trying to gain some control over the over the infilling below the high water mark, and we also want to establish some sort of a setback standard, a general one, and we also want to go down the road of using the site plan assessment if you want to get closer. And that all makes sense to me, But I just think that before we go to the public, council should have some of this stuff that we're gonna present to the public as
Yep.
opposed to
Well-
starting from scratch, because you're gonna hear everything under the sun out there.
Well,
you know.
yeah, and I mean, this, I'm certainly open to that. I've gotten a lot out of this discussion, and a lot of the comments are, if you'd asked me to come back and draft something that's along the same lines, knowing that the provincial tool may be available is, thank you, that's really helpful. So I could definitely come back with a slightly more refined,
But that's all I think.
yeah,
It's
I think that makes
something
sense.
to go
Sorry,
I was just
Kara.
gonna add, yeah, I think, this conversation, probably we need to look into some questions, right?
Yes.
Are we able to actually limit infill?
Yeah.
I don't know that we're able to limit infill, but like Sam said, once the infill's done, get at the
Right.
intent of that. Are you able to build
Yes,
on it?
what's that
Do you limit
process?
development on it so that it makes it less desirable to do the infill in the first place? The tool, who owns
Yeah.
it? Can we
Right.
have access to it? How do we make it accessible to, it's not something I anticipate that staff would be able to do. It would have to be done by a QP.
Yeah,
So
right.
if the province owns the tool and they're saying we can't have access to it, even though we have access to it, how do we make it available then to other, there's a
Yeah.
lot of questions I think that
Yeah,
this
yeah.
discussion raises that we should look into and then come back to council with another discussion.
Yeah, with maybe a request for
Yeah.
direction to go out and do engagement
Yeah.
at the next time. Yeah, sure. No, that's.
Councillor Bremner.
Thank you, Deputy Warden, and through you to the council. I'm very encouraged by this discussion, and I'm glad we're here at this point, because next to the deer, the streets, and a number of other things, this is the third or fourth biggest topic I hear the most of. For the area of District 3, of course, 1/4 of it is all the coast, and I have a number of very keen residents, taxpayers that are quite knowledgeable in this, so I think the idea of getting out public sessions is an absolute must. I love the fact that Councillor Reno brings in his expertise from his knowledge of what, most people were upset that the government dumped on us. I want to make that very clear. Anyone I talk to that's looked at this is not happy that this got dumped down on municipal levels, and we're very surprised that we were actually made to do this. It's not a comfortable situation. I also want to thank Garth, because I think the idea of having something as a basic starting point is important, because people want to hear something, and I agree with Warden Weber, everybody's going to jump all over the place with what they think is the salvation of what we're trying to do, but I think being flexible, showing we're doing leadership here, because this is what this is. This is one of the biggest challenges we've faced for a long time, and dealing with something that's not going to go away. I've also had many calls about infilling, which I think is increasing water levels. When you think about it, every rock that goes in pushes the water up somewhere, the level, and it's just common sense. Like this, it's ridiculous how it kind of, we and the other levels of government compete against each other to save the world, right, or save the universe in what way. So again, I appreciate this, and I look forward to this opportunity. Communications, please, get it out to the public, because I'd like to break a mold that they don't say every time, we never heard, we never knew, we never this. So I encourage that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'd just like to say, to Tina's point, where the mail goes out, I mean, obviously, there's probably people in New Ross that own property on the coast. I mean, you don't know. They would like to know.
Absolutely.
But, to make it very clear that they can attend any meeting.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And anybody would be welcome.
Anybody,
to
any
anyone. Yeah,
district, right,
exactly.
you can
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's important, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think, Garth, do you have everything you need?
I do, yes, no, thank you very much. So we'll work on a bit more of a detailed plan, get some of those answers, and come back with a request for direction to go out with an engagement plan. Yeah,
Perfect,
great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Garth. Okay, now we're moving on to number 2. And I guess that would be Mr. Wynot. There he is.
Number 2, which is number 4.
What, number 2, which is number 4, but no. It's
I know. Yeah, I'll be here before you know it. Yeah,
Fred, you
Yeah.
have the floor.
all right. The background is, we did put, our sanding and salting rates and some standards in our snow and ice control contracts for our roads and sidewalks when I first got here. as did the predecessor, but we just don't have a formal policy yet, right? And other background, like last year, there's quite a bit of ice, you know, it's more ice than it was snow. And in the village, there's lots of concerns from the residents. And it's my understanding that years ago, council requested transportation not to salt within the village because of the wells, right? So here we are, right? So just talking about some priorities and standards and based on other jurisdictions. Well, the first one would be the Department of Transportation. They plow the majority of the roads in the province. We've just been having roads ourselves since 1995. And they go by volume and class of road, of course. You have your 100 series, your regular numbered highways, and then the smaller highways that may not be called a highway, but their main connector, like Borgles Point Road would be a G, H, or I highway in that. And the last would be the J class, which would be the subdivisions. So it makes sense. You're not going to send your trucks to the subdivisions first at the 101 or 103 isn't open, right? And they don't do sidewalks. So with us, we only have J class roads. So that's easier to manage, right? Because you can set a certain standard, you know. And if we do look at a formal policy, we should look at priority 1 and priority 2 roads, and then with transportation, it's based on volume, right? If you have a large subdivision with a through road with lots of volume, that's probably priority 1. And then you look at, you know, schools, hospitals, our municipal infrastructure, things like that, which is also give it, you know, the same standards for salt and snow, but be more of a cycle time, things like that. Like Parkwood Drive would probably be a priority 1 road because there's a school on it, right? So things like that. So we bring that back, and again, it'd be based on salt above 10, minus 10 is generally 85 kilograms per kilometer. And that's because the speeds are lower than that. And I'll give you your centerline beer kind of standard, right? When it's cold, you have to have sand, right?
Fred, when sorry, just
Oh, go ahead.
when I was reading the report, so when the contractor that does the sidewalks, there was nothing, from what I read, there was nothing in there, if he has to come back to do it, how's that charged out and all that? You're looking for sort of a policy with that too as well?
Yeah, we're gonna put that out again anyways, but it's be more of like, we inspect it, and if they're not doing what they said, then we call them and they come back, right? And we would have better define that standard. And again, with sidewalks, you're not gonna get the snow machine on the sidewalk if the highway's not done, right? To get there.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, so you generally wait 24 hours after the snow is settled and that, so you have time to go in there. And another pet peeve of everybody in the business, you have it all cleared out, and then the province comes along and wings it back in, and like, oh, right, so.
Yeah.
And that will happen again going forward, but it's just based on the priorities and setting that and so on. And with sidewalks, again, you know, you don't put a lot down, but unless it's below minus 10, you should really be doing salt. It's safer. And that's what we should be looking at. A policy is so directed going forward. And really, provincial roads within Chester should really be their responsibility. We should leave it up to them to best manage it. That way, if there was an accident, because it's just a sheet of ice, we have nothing to do with it. They have to manage that, right? And you have to look where the wells are. Like, wells are better constructed now. If they're drilled, not so much of a concern. But there's some areas where the well, and I've seen this before, is actually in the ditch. So they're gonna get some salt, right? But you gotta manage that, look at it, right? And if it is really cold, sometimes they add a little salt to the sand anyway, so it doesn't clump, right? But it should be written in the standard. And it's something that can bring it back, but we kind of want to see what your thoughts are, like, and I'll go back up in the sidewalks too, like it's a visibility thing for clearing snowbanks. You should keep them all below 4 feet, 1.2 meters, 6 meters back from the intersections, so you can see small children walking through the intersection. Look at that, like, there's some concerns, well, you know, you can't get out of your car, you can't access certain areas. Well, we're looking at the movement, safe movement of pedestrians, right? If you have to drop someone off at the intersection so they can walk back, it's, you know, but that's something we can look at as well, right? And, yeah, so it's,
Whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just, I mean, we don't own very many roads.
no, we don't.
No,
Right.
so, I mean, I'm just, you know, to get terribly involved in the J-class standards, like,
Yeah, we should
Because
adopt
it's-
our own, manage our own, and let the province do the rest, right?
yeah, just our own roads. You know, now the sidewalks, do I get a lot of complaints about them? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the new ones in Chester Race, they weren't looking after,
Yeah,
somehow wasn't on their list of things to do or whatever like that, but I do fully understand that, you know, until the roads are plowed, what's the point?
yeah, you gotta, it's
Like,
gotta
whether
be
they should have a little
consistent,
salt on them, yeah?
Yeah.
They get pretty slippery,
yeah.
yeah.
And there, unfortunately, there has been a number of slip and falls the last couple of years in Chester in the winter. And
Yeah, so.
they're hard to avoid, like you gotta dress for the weather too, but you never wanna see that happen regardless, right?
No, so I mean, if the conditions are require salt, then yeah, you should put it on. But yeah, I just soon stay to the J-class as much as we possibly can.
Yeah,
Councillor Connors.
Thank you. So the 4 kilometers of municipally owned roads, that's the J-class roads in the entirety of the municipality.
that we own, right? The province owns about 35.
Those are municipal roads. So J-class is,
Yeah.
maybe confusing the issue
It's
because we
outside.
don't,
Subdivision roads,
it's
sorry.
it's subdivision roads
Yeah,
that are owned by the municipality. So they're equivalent to what, if they were owned by the province, what they would consider a J-class road. But they're not J-class roads, they're
Yeah.
municipally owned roads. Yeah, let's not talk
Yeah.
about J-class.
That's my previous provincial hat, sorry. Yeah.
and my next question would be, and Alan referenced the new sidewalks in Chester Basin, and they weren't, attended to as, so remind me again, I know the contractor, of course, in my district, but who are our winter contractors right now?
Actually, no one, because they've all expired.
I know,
Yeah,
okay,
but
I
that's
should have
not-
said before
But a
expiration.
new Ross is Danny Hiltz.
Yeah, yeah,
Does a great job for us. He also plows out our treatment plant up there for
yeah,
us, right?
right,
Then Bruce Saunier and George Zink do our roads in those
Okay.
areas. And then Billy Gerhart, they do the rest of our sidewalks,
okay.
yeah.
So that, obviously, if we're looking at, and we are, because the contracts are open at the moment.
Yep.
That would be part of the evaluation.
Yeah,
Their
for sure.
previous work, quality and so on, I would think, right?
Yeah, and we did that last time. It had all that criteria and ranking, and we had one bidder for each area.
I know, that's,
So they all ranked number one.
I know, right? I know, right?
Yeah, but and
Yeah.
staff
Yeah.
manage as best we can, following up on that, yeah.
Exactly. Just another question, and I don't have the history to this necessarily, even though I'm sure it was in the last 12 years, not to salt within the village, so.
That's my understanding, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
that would be we have, I would guess that if it was my area, I would have calls from people that don't want salt and calls from
Yeah.
people that do want salt.
Yeah.
My guess is what people are saying, I'm not sure, because I
Yeah.
don't get those calls. And also too, I'm definitely strong on the provincial roads, provincial responsibility.
yes.
Because
Yeah,
if we
legally,
start
we
it-
should just
Yeah, if
stay
we
out of
start
like,
it, we're gonna be
note our
doing it.
concerns and say, these wells here, maybe have a well inventory or something before you change, but,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I know it's coming up in another agenda item, I guess with Public Works Service expansion. I have my notes
Yes,
there too.
yeah.
Because if we start delving into that, and I don't know if we have, maybe I should be asking that question, what would be provincial responsibility? I have probably a lot of interested people in my area for the municipality to expand as well, the service levels on provincial responsibility areas in other areas of the municipality. So I'll just wait and see where we land
Yeah,
on
we'll
all that.
discuss that one and
I
get
know,
to different
yeah,
ideas,
I know,
yeah.
I have some
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yep,
And that's what this whole morning's for,
Absolutely.
just bounce ideas off how you want to see us bring something back, and,
Yep.
yeah.
perfect.
Tara?
Yeah, I just want to jump in. So, part of what we're looking for is there an interest in having a policy, first of all, that deals with municipal roads and then sidewalks. And then how do we, what are the standards for sidewalks? Are we using
Yeah.
salt? Are we using sand? Is it different in the village than outside of the village? Do we
Exactly.
revisit the request? It's been, you know, probably at least 10 or 15 years since that request, I think, was made. I don't even know when it was made. I know it's
Yeah,
been in place since I've been here for about 15 years.
Yeah.
So, and so traditionally, we've asked the province, when they're doing the roads in the village, which are all J-class roads, that they use sand. And the winters are getting a little harsher sometimes, the sand, the ice is, we're seeing, you know, icier and icier roads. We get more and more complaints about it, so just a revisit with council, is that something we still wanna, do we wanna keep that in place? Do we want to revisit that? What information do we need to deal with that? And then, so if we have a policy for our roads and the sidewalks that we maintain, which is all the sidewalks, do we have standards for, you know, salting, sanding, the storage of snow last year in the village? I know there was some complaints around when you park on like Pleasant or Queen, being able to open your door and you're stepping out from the sidewalk side, you're stepping into a snowbank because there was so much snow coming from the sidewalks. So we just wanted to have that kind of conversation of what standards do we want to have in place, and make it a little clearer for staff so that we can point to something and say, this is our standard. This is when we plow the roads, you know, or the sidewalks. Do we
Yeah.
wait for the plow to come through for the first time before we go out and do the sidewalks? Or do we go do the sidewalks right away and it's within, you know, so many hours of
Yeah.
the snowfall finishing? And
Yeah.
so we just wanted to have that conversation.
Yeah, like how formal do you want it? What are your ideas? And, you know, we don't necessarily come back and, well, here are the rules. Here's the next set of suggestions, and we discuss it, and then hopefully have it in place when I put the new contracts out.
Councilor Vino.
Thank you. I'm not really sure how to advise. I think about the private sector when there are seasonal contracts to clear a parking lot in front of the strip mall or whatever, and I have no doubt that they have certain minimum performance standards they have to adhere to, and when those businesses are open, those trucks are there, and if the conditions warrant it, they don't leave. And that's, I think that having a minimum performance standard that's measurable for what we would expect for our sidewalks, whether or not the road is cleared or not cleared, I don't know that I want to provide that avenue for escape. To me, you know, if people are traveling by foot and they have to walk on the sidewalks, then there should be some sort of minimal, you know, maybe wait until the snow stops falling, but as soon as that's done, then I think there should be, I think the work should be undertaken, and there needs to be a requirement to maintain that at a certain level and perpetually throughout some time period from whatever, the end of November till,
That's right. They'd have, you know, it'd be a certain threshold that was still snowing, but if it's a certain depth, well, they gotta be able to make that first pass regardless, right?
yeah, and so, you know, I just feel like that's something that whatever, in the same fashion as the private sector would expect, you know, they expect safe passage from your vehicle to the independent to get your bananas or whatever. You know, we have the same thing here, you know, people want to be able to move around, and so setting those minimum expectations, and I don't like making it contingent on whether the province have plowed or not plowed. You know, if the plow breaks down, doesn't mean you don't have to plow the sidewalk, you know?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So,
We wanna set something up to maintain our own property.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if they plow it all back in, then you're gonna have to come back, sorry.
exactly, yeah.
In terms of what the minimum requirements are, I think I would defer to your, you know, the Public Works' professional judgment on what those minimum standards should be. And I have no doubt you can pull on other examples and inform us. I do wonder in terms of the cost, because we do have a broadening network of sidewalks, which is great and well-used, and aside from the initial shock of putting them in where people will complain that we're wasting tax dollars, after they're in for the next 50 to 70 years, people are usually pretty happy about walking on them. I wonder though, at what point are we gonna reach the threshold where we need to have our own equipment and bring our seasonal people, they won't be so seasonal, you know, they're gonna be there. I don't know where that is. I'm just openly just saying, you know, at some point it's gonna have to make sense for us to start, for some, it's like, for example, if there's a really broad network in Chester Village, we may need soon a machine of our own there, and then we'll contract out the outlying areas or whatever. I don't know where that threshold lies, but no doubt it's crossed your mind. It's
Part
crossed
of
mine.
the next discussion.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus. Oh, my bad. So anyways, I guess that's really all I have to say about it.
Councillor Bremner.
Thank you, Deputy Warden, through you to Fred. We've had this discussion, the village, the business people, I think in any of our communities, the business people are concerned. The changing climate, which you noted, the snow, rain, freezing rain, that kind of stuff, and then we get built up. I would say 90% of my calls this year were Prince Street, or Pleasant Street, Duke Street, Queen Street, the business areas that were very concerned, and I like what Councillor Vino said. I think we're getting to that point, we need a piece of equipment to do multiple trips because our contractor may not be aware of, or too busy to deal with that emergency situation we're into.
It's tough,
There's a balance there, and I don't really know how to break that down, but I think we're all in that point. Those businesses and those people that have situations that they're relying on safe travel, which most are, but particularly the business area, need that extra attention and that timely response. So I encourage you, and I do think that the process we're looking at is the flexibility of your experience and your knowledge to bring us something that we can work with and go
Yeah,
from
we
there.
could bring something back next policy and strategy, depending on what other agenda items there are, but
Yeah.
this is a-
I look forward to that because we've got to do something. It's come to that point.
yeah, there's lots of other jurisdictions that we can mirror and what makes sense, but, you know.
Yeah. And I do appreciate the attention to this. Thank you, Deputy Warden.
Sam?
Fred, I have a question. Would this policy cover when you haul snow away? Because you often get that,
It can.
because, you know, it piles up and then people start saying, well, when are they gonna take the snow
A
away?
lot of it is if it gets above 4 feet, right? That's when you really gotta say, okay, it's time to come in, or like intersections. Like if you're on a cul-de-sac and you start getting lots of snow in the intersection, well, you gotta come in and haul that away, right? So 1.2 meters, 4 feet is generally the look, because that's the sight distance, right? That's where, you know, you can see over the hood of your car, you can see a small child and things like that.
Just jump in for 1 second.
Yes, Tara.
I heard some conversation, saying that you thought we had policy, there may be a policy or a practice, but we couldn't find anything in writing. We looked when we were asked last year, so that's why we're here today, is let's formalize the stuff, let's put it in a policy, and let's make sure it's in writing.
Yeah.
So that when we have staff, you know, staff can change and turn over, and, you know, our practice might be this 10 years ago, but the new staff don't know what that was, right? So we need to have something in writing.
Councillor Vino?
I just wanted to add one more point, because in my previous monologue, I failed to mention municipal roads that are contracted. I've never heard any complaints about the service we receive from our contractors on municipal roads. As far as I know, they're all terrific. So whatever standard by which, I don't know that there is a much documented standard, but I would consult with Danny, George, and Bruce and ask them what they're doing, because whatever that is, the people that are on those roads seem to be quite happy with their service.
Yeah, we were given the rates and they said when they go out is based on them, right? You know, here's what we expect, when we expect, and that. And when this happens, you have to have staff or knowledge, okay, I better get out there and do that. And they're also very good as, because the one we had, the gravel shoulders, we want to keep the plows off the gravel shoulders until they're frozen, right? Because then it just goes in the ditch, and they were very good at that and just doing the right thing, so, yeah, they work very well with us. So.
Councillor Coolin.
Thank you. So it's my understanding that there is no policy, there is no standards as, or if it is, it's so far back, nobody even knows what those numbers and
Not-
figures are?
not really.
So we're in the process of creating, with Fred's requests, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna create our own standards.
Finalize
And it's
it
going to
based
be
on past
adopted
practice, yeah.
to the new, you know, obviously the new infrastructures that are coming, for example, like Hubbard's is gonna have like a new sidewalk, you know, in addition to the sidewalk that's currently there. So, not just saying for Hubbard's perspective, but overall, if we're gonna, we're in the driver's seat right now to make policies and standards, we should also include the fact of the new infrastructures that are coming down the pipe.
Oh, it would
Yeah,
include all
so,
of that,
Yeah, yeah.
It wouldn't apply to the existing sidewalks any different. The only time we
That's
might
right.
have a difference is village versus.
Correct.
Outside the
Okay,
village.
great.
If council wanted a different standard
Yeah.
used, like maybe the standard is we use salt on the sidewalks.
Yep.
And in the village, maybe the standard is we use sand up until a certain temperature and then we only switch to salt at a certain point. So we need to, but we need to have those discussions.
have it
And then
in
the
black
other
and white.
big one is the J-class roads in the village. Is there any desire to revisit that policy?
Great, thank you, thank you.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
You continue, Fred?
No, that's it, really.
That's
Just
it?
want to get some general
Okay,
ideas.
so
and
if nobody has any objections, we're gonna, before we move on to the next section of the new administrative building, next steps, I think we better take a break, because that's gonna be a,
Yeah, we still have one more before that. We have the Public Works expansion as well.
oh, sorry.
But we can do that.
Yeah, we can have breaks, sure.
that
yeah.
okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going anywhere.
call the meeting back to order. Fred,
All right.
continue your presentation, please.
Sure, and this is starting about municipal service delivery, and this is basically to see what council's thoughts are going forward, right? Some things to look at, price out, and if there's anything else that we've missed. I've listed basically what our 4 staff do for the maintenance side of things for summer and winter. I won't bother reading those out. And I'll just jump right to some of the things that's been requested of us. Recently, there was discussion of maintaining flower baskets in Western Shore. That was 15 baskets. Like the hangers are there already, of course, and the group that was doing it there, we allowed them to do it, but they were no longer able to do that. And it was hard to, we didn't get any bidders, right? So the thing that,
It was late.
yeah. Yeah, we gave it a shot, but it would help get the information anyways, because
Yeah.
for one thing, 15 baskets is very low on the range for a contract to be interested in. Here in Chester, they do 75.
Now, and that's where I got the number, and from
Yeah.
the company that did them for the village.
Yeah,
And what I was thinking for next year, you know, they may be able to do them all in one fell swoop, if we agree. To do, when the village gets theirs done, we'll have them done as well, and, for the park.
We don't do the village contract, though.
No, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
I spoke to the lady that owned the shop, and they were interested in it. But I think what happened was it was late, and they
Yeah.
have to build these baskets starting in April or maybe sooner.
yeah, they'd have to have the order in the fall for the following year, and then we'd
So,
have
yeah,
to.
and I think it wouldn't be a problem to coordinate it with the village and the actually, the grower. So-
Yeah, that's something to look at to see where the interest is, because, you know, maybe along the shore, you should have a different type of flower. It may be different than Chester Basin, right? And it would take one of our guys, because you look at it in the morning, and with the heat, you should probably do it a second time. So that's probably one guy tied up half a day for 3 months of the year, right?
No,
That's expensive
No,
for
and I
15.
think that was the discussion.
Yeah,
Because when we did it before, that was done through, the person that was warding them,
Volunteer, yeah.
that supplied the baskets.
yeah,
But that was where the issue fell. And I think it's worth a broader discussion that, you know, the village contracts that maintenance out. And of course, we didn't approach the maintenance part of it because we couldn't get the baskets.
yeah.
So there's availability for maintenance here through a person that does it for the village. So, I think that's something, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to, so that's, again, part of the reason we're having this discussion is
Yeah.
when we had that initial request, it was, the direction to staff was to go out and do it for this year, to look for a contract for this year. We couldn't do it. And then there was discussion at that time of, there needs to be a larger discussion if this is something that we want to do on a permanent basis, and where do we want to do it for? Do we want to just do baskets at Wild Rose? Or do we expand that out, or do we not want to
Yeah.
do that, and it becomes the responsibility of community groups? So we just wanted to have those discussions. We've also had discussions around landscaping. So there's a whole bunch of services that related to public works and public works staff, sidewalks, expansion of the sidewalk crew. So we need to get a little bit of direction on where's council thinking that if they want to expand service and in what
Yeah,
areas.
Exactly. And the first is the baskets, right, so.
Yeah,
Mark-
no, I guess that's where I am. It's not whether we're gonna do it in Western Shore, it's whether we're gonna do it everywhere.
Right.
Because, you know, like, in Chester Basin, we initially started out where the municipality bought the darn things, put them up and watered them and all that kind of stuff. And then that sort of quit, and it moved on to volunteers who bought them themselves, and sometimes they gave them a grant, sometimes they didn't need any money, and they just got it from volunteers, and they watered them themselves. And then Richard Eldridge passed, and he was mostly responsible, him and Jimmy Clinton,
Yeah.
You know, they get down there and they weren't worried about the safety hazards or any of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. You know, they just did it their own way. And now this year they haven't put them up, but that's just because the volunteers don't exist. But if we're gonna do it in Western Shore, I can guarantee you they're gonna ask me, why aren't you putting them back up and doing it and maintaining it in Chester Basin? Because it's a public sidewalk, they're public lamp poles, and we own them all, I mean, you know, so.
Yeah.
If we're going down the road, it's gonna have to be more than Western Shore. And I don't think we should, but.
Counselor Connors?
Thank you. Completely agree with Warden Weber's comments. I know that this will circle back to our growth strategy in terms of hamlet zones and community beautification, facade
Yes.
discussions, all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
For me, it does anyway. For me, it does. So again, I'm loving these discussions today,
Yeah.
really, because it's opening,
Same.
it's opening that file, not the envelope, but it's
Yeah.
opening that file for me in terms
Yeah.
of consistency and fairness throughout the municipality for everything that we do.
Yeah.
And I can't believe after 12 years, I'm still discovering stuff. But it's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
It keeps me on
Learn
my
every day.
toes and
Yeah.
the edge of my seat. But yeah, so in New Ross, we've done it forever as volunteers. I can't take any credit. I'm not a member of the Charing Cross Garden Club, but as volunteers, they've done it from day one. So that's why I put my fingers in my ears when Warden Weber referenced Chester Basin and the municipality purchasing in the first place. So, but no, again, that's the page I'm on and will be, and I'm loving it. Thank you.
Counselor Sure.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. I love the sense of community in New Ross. It's fantastic that the garden club does it. Certainly, there's a garden club in Chester, and they maintain the gardens, and it's beautiful. I would be more apt to go the route of having a grant. It's an opportunity for community groups to apply if that's their project. I would rather see that than just say, oh, we're going to put flowers up in every community and pay to have them maintained. That's going to be pretty costly.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful, but it's going to be costly, whereas the flowers in New Ross look fantastic, and it's the volunteers that are doing it. So I think, if we can maybe build a sense of community. I know, just an example, in the town of Lunenburg, went with metal signs, put up different things like different fish or whatever, because it was becoming very costly to do and maintain the flowers. And then you have to have somebody on staff
Yeah.
that is almost a horticulturist. There's different,
You got a mix of fertilizer.
oh
you
yeah,
gotta have
it's
the right
not
ones,
just
and-
watering the flowers, so
Yeah.
people that are involved in a garden club understand that. So
Yeah.
that's just my thought on it.
Counselor Vino.
This is an auspicious day. I agree with Counselor Church. I would say that in the past, probably within the last year, I think it's been raised, not informally, but discussed in passing about perhaps at some point bringing back a facade improvement program of sorts to our municipality. And I feel like having a stream or a grant stream in some way for public-facing property to be improved, which could include flower baskets, or if businesses want to put gardens or whatever to try to improve the quality of our community, the community feel. I feel like this would be a good place for this. So if I were gonna suggest anything today, it would be that we would try to roll out something along those lines of a facade improvement program, which would include, garden clubs or anybody who wish to beautify their communities by, creating these, community gardens or, outward-looking, beautification projects.
Counselor Connors.
Certainly, to continue on with the same conversation, Councillor Church made a great point around the town of Lunenburg and the not the banner program, but the metalwork and artwork program, I guess, on street poles. So going back a number of years, we had a presentation, I think it might have been a volunteer with the Playhouse at the time it was, and she talked about street banners and a banner program, the hardware program in the village, but she also included the entirety of the municipality. And it was at the same time that the deadline was kind of very close for the provincial matching $25,000 for a $50,000 project. And I know that I dealt with Olivia at the time and provided information from New Ross in terms of the hardware, the company that provided the hardware, the brackets, the banners, and so on, but it just was too quick. There wasn't that time, I don't think, to make applications, so I know we talked about it here at this table as well in terms of that being part of the kind of the downtown area beautification. So I just wanted to throw that out again as
It'll
a
be coming
discussion.
to next week's council agenda, I think,
Wow,
for
yay!
beautification. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I guess what I would say in response, the reason why I approached the subject, because, as I said, the person that was doing the flower baskets and the watering no longer did it.
Yeah.
So, and it's a municipal park, and it's not just a walking trail. I mean, people use it to eat and whatever. But what I was using the district grant for that, which was fine and dandy. And I was prepared to use the district grant, but like you say, there was no way to actually do the maintenance is the biggest issue.
Yes.
Now, I guess I would entertain, and maybe the other councilors might entertain the fact that if they want to put flower baskets in their district, that they use their district grant, if that's what they want to choose. However, the maintenance of these baskets, we contract out. Because we don't have the staff to do it. I understand, I'm not stupid. We don't have the staff to do it. The maintenance piece is essential. I mean, if you don't have the maintenance, the baskets are no sense to put there.
Yeah.
I would ask to have a look at that, just to see what it might cost. Put a tender out, MOU, just to get some idea what it would cost. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I agree with every counselor here. I mean, if we put them in one place, it's just that where it is over there, it's more just than walking past the sidewalk. It's a fully used park. People picnic there, and and like I say, I'm willing to use my district grant for that, but it's impossible for me with the district grant to do both, and then that takes away from my other organizations. So, anyway, Councilor Vino, you wait till I turn you on there, buddy. There you go.
Well, I just wanted to respond. Reading the body language in this room, I don't think we're in agreement with going out for any sort of service of baskets or anything like that. I don't know, others can speak up, but I don't want to just go down this road here, because I don't think, this is the body language I'm seeing, is that if we're going to do it, it's going to be volunteer-led, maybe with some financial assistance in some fashion that can be formalized. But otherwise, I don't see any role for the municipality in the ongoing maintenance of flower baskets or anything of the like. That's my take. Others can speak up. This could be a 6-1 slap down.
Councilor Coolidge.
Stop. Thank you. And we're going to exhaust our volunteers again. I mean, that's what's going to happen. If it falls to the volunteer component, we're going to exhaust them. But however, I think more engagement with beautification of the communities and the districts and the hamlets that they live in, I think that they would step up. I truly do. Hopefully that they would. But you mentioned, Abdallah, Mr. Asif, Deputy Warden Asif, let me just say it correctly. You said that it's a provincial park, like that
It's a municipal.
Municipal park, yeah. And the maintaining is the money component, right? Buying the baskets is a one-off. This is how much each basket costs, I need 15, but the maintenance is an absorbent amount of money. It's an
probably
absorbent
10
amount of
grand.
money. When something could be done like permanently, like, I'm just saying, it seems like an awful lot of money going to one part of the district. I'm not for all districts having a maintenance contract. And, thank you.
Okay, Fred?
Right? And the next is along the same road, so to speak, is flower beds and flowered areas. I mean, again, we don't have the staff expertise in that, but something should be looked at through beautification, but, you know, the scope should be set of what you want the beautification committee or group, whoever's gonna look at this, to give direction on that. Like, you know, once its scope is determined what you guys want, then we can get tenders out, but that'd be something that I would see contracted out. Right?
And I think this was just growing off of some of the discussions that we've
Exactly.
had around, like, we've got Lordley Park, we've got Wild Rose. And is there any desire to go beyond what we're doing now, which is really, and the other question was Zoe Val Library as well.
Yeah.
So is there any desire on council's part to go beyond what we do now, which is basically cutting the lawns, trimming the hedges, and mowing? That's really
Dead
it.
trees, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, we don't get into maintaining the rose bushes too much, and we don't get into planting flower beds at Zoe Val Library. And so if that's if there is any desire for council to look at what we do in our parks, we would like to have that discussion and direction.
Yeah, set a plan and then, you know, we can figure it out.
Councillor Connors?
Thank you. I apologize. Can you tell me again where our 8 parks are?
No,
Chad's here, so.
yeah, there's one off Victoria Road, a small one there by the bridge. I forget the names right now. There's the one at just before the intersection of Water Street and Pig Loop. There's a park there. There's also Tancook Ferry, we do that. We do work at the Parade Square. There's Wild Rose. There's the park in Chester
Rock Road?
Basin.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
together we
the
can.
Anvil Park, yeah, I know it wasn't Founders, I was trying to think of the Anvil Park, and then the Croft Road Playground, we do that. We also do the train station. And
Together we can park, I think.
together we can, yeah, do that, yeah, so, a little bit all over the place there. And then, I believe so, yeah, we do Wild Rose,
don't
I think
understand
that's
this.
separate, but we do
Don't
some
understand
maintenance
this.
there, yeah.
No, I just made my list really quick,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna have to do some deep thinking. I don't know that I'm gonna land on anything today.
oh, that's fine,
But-
yeah.
I have concerns now with some of these, because I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know that we own these properties. I don't know that we do.
No, we don't. Some has
I
been
don't know that we
historical,
do.
like we don't
Pardon?
own the train station up there, but we do it, because historically, right?
Right, again,
We
so
own a bit of
talk
Parade
about-
Square, so,
We talk
yeah.
about, we just got finished talking about flower baskets and the amount of money that would take. I'm sorry, but I'm a little upset right now.
Yeah, and then Lorley Park is the other one I was trying to miss there, and that's a new park, right? So, to us, right?
Pardon?
We own it now, but before
We own
last
it now,
year, we
yes.
didn't, right?
But we
So,
didn't own it until the last, what, couple months, year or two?
Yeah,
I know when we, pardon? We weren't mowing it then. No, no, yeah. But some of these properties, I don't know that we own. I don't know, I'll have to confirm all that.
Might be we can look at them. I think the only one
Yeah.
might be the train station.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Tancook Ferry? The property near Tancook Ferry?
well, around the benches and that, we mow
We own
around
it?
there,
We
we
own
have the
that?
porta
We own the
potty
land
there.
there?
Yes, we do own that.
Okay, no, that's
Yeah.
good.
It's
We
more
own
of
it.
an easement, but we do own it there, so.
It's an easement.
Yeah,
Where?
There's a piece.
No, we own that strip.
We own
yeah,
the strip.
it's small,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But there is I think we go beyond that for the mowing. I think we go beyond the.
Yeah, because we have the wharf right there and boat launch and so we could do that strip there, yeah, so we kind of took that area over. But, Yeah, an overall strategy as part of beautification should be looked at through Parks and Rec and that, and, you
Yeah,
know.
and what we own, what we don't own, what makes sense, what doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, where we're spending our monies, all of that. In terms
Yeah.
of the entirety of the municipality, from Hubbards to Blandford. Like, I mean, I'll speak for Blandford if I have to, right?
Yeah.
You know, they do, they have an excellent spokesperson.
Yeah.
We joined council on the same date, Councillor Vino, I'm aware of that. Yeah, no. Okay, that's for now.
Yeah, and it'll be all part of the scope, right?
Sorry, Carol, I know you wanted to speak, but this is just a policy and strategy session.
I know it is, but if you're gonna talk about the train station, and I'm hearing, you don't own it, well, you own a building that sits on that property, and the agreement was that you use put the building there, and in reciprocation for being able to put your trail building and all that there, you mowed the grass. That was the
Yeah, and I think that's a further discussion, in probably our regular council meeting, or perhaps you'd like to speak on it in the public section before the meetings, Carol, if that works for you.
Well, I didn't get a chance today, so.
We don't have a public session
In this policy.
Yeah, and there may be other properties that we want to develop. That's to be determined, of course, right?
Okay, Fred, you can continue.
So I guess it'll be come back under beautification, those two areas for further discussion, I guess is direction? All right. The next is expansion of trail maintenance activities. Our chipper is coming today, actually, so that'll help. And then we do have a heavy equipment contractor that does some work for us, good work. There's an opportunity maybe with some of these utility vehicles that we can do some in-house as well. We do a lot of hand cutting because some of the maintenance vehicles we see just destroys the trees. You got sharp stakes kind of, we're really do a lot of that by hand. But there may be an opportunity with one of these machines to have a flail mower that, you know, keep the small green stuff down. That's not too bad. And that's something, if we look at that, we can determine, okay, it took us this many person hours to do this many kilometers. Because down the road, you know, if we had a base model, what time it would take, then we can look at what's being considered for all these unopened roads. So there's a report coming back on the opportunities where we can buy these roads from the transportation. And a really good opportunity is the old Annapolis Road. And it's between 55 and 60 kilometers. There'd be a lot of work to get that going and up to speed. It's pretty well grown in areas and through a field and other areas, right from what we're hearing from the surveyors. Very interesting. But to bring back a full report to council, we said, okay, well, we figure it'll take this many person hours, or we have to contract it out or so on. So, you know, it may be an opportunity now with the utility vehicle to look at some of this stuff, and it could also be used on our roads, or for brush cutting on our roads and the ditching, little things like that, you know. Just
Councillor
pick
Vino.
away at it, yeah.
I'm just a bit, and this is quite operational, so I gotta be careful here, but are you thinking about, like?
Could you speak up, sir? I'm sorry. Thank you. The boy.
So, were you thinking that you're thinking about buying like a 24 or like a 20-some horsepower tractor or something like that to maintain the trails, or something we already have? I'm a bit unclear what we're talking about.
What I'm thinking is a sidewalk machine.
Okay.
Basically, that does the winter maintenance, because you can put the snow blower, you can have the salt, basically what the contractors have now, looking at us have one of those, but also have a summer aspect to it that we can have year round.
Oh, cool. So you can get different attachments for other.
Quite a bit. Others, like, we have zero-turn mowers that they're hard to beat. They're great on our sidewalks. You could do some of that, but not as efficiently. But the flail mowers have interest, and there could be other things that have
Okay,
sweeper
cool. I
attachments.
didn't know that you could get those attachments. That's cool. I love equipment.
Yeah.
I must look into it.
Yeah. And then I'll expand more on that when we talk about the sidewalks there, right?
So I think the intention here is to have this discussion, and then we would need to come back with a
Pricing.
further more detailed RFP of what does that mean for our existing contracts? What does that look like for cost and hours? And so we just want to kind of have the initial discussion.
Yeah, and then to come back with some pricing and thoughts on another policy and strategy, right? Yeah, right? And the next thing, that led into the roads, same thing, what we could do on the trails, we could do on our roads, right? Of course, yeah. Again, you know, and, yeah, for sure. And then, the next one is the sidewalks. We have quite a number of sidewalks, and the contract is up, but we're not ready to jump in yet, because we don't have staff that are trained on these vehicles yet. But what I would like to price out and bring back to council for consideration would be looking at if we can rent one or do we purchase one? Because part of the problems with the winter inspections, unless you walk the sidewalks, because you can drive by them slowly in a truck as much as you want, but there's a pile of snow there, less than 4 feet. You can't tell, you can't get those spots. If we had a vehicle, we could drive the sidewalks. We could see how the contractor has done. If they missed an area, well, we can salt a bit of that while we're there. If it gets plowed back in, well, we can take care of that, you know, some due diligence says that, oh, someone else's job, we'll call them back, right? And doing that, we could time all this. We can see how many person hours it takes, how much salt and sand and so on. And then, you know, the following year, maybe we will of course bring back to council that we feel we can do this, but we'll need 2 machines or whatever, right? And here's what it works out. Or maybe this area is too far out, the contractor's doing a great job, maybe we do that, don't do that. Maybe we just have the one that we just do inspections to help them out, just more due diligence, right? They do what they can, but if transportation comes behind them and they gotta look after the roads first, right? It'd help. If sheets of ice come off a roof, they don't know that, right? And it would help us operationally, and that's something we can bring back for discussion, right?
Councillor Bremner.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. This is a very good thought, and this is the way that we're gonna have to look at growing, because we are going to enhance, and this is the calls I'm getting about the timing, the contractor's not available to come back when we need them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I repeat, the folks in the working districts and the business districts are entitled to better service, in my opinion, and we need to provide some of those options. I think this is a great thought, Fred, and where we should be looking.
Yeah, when we had some discussions already, and we've had a couple of trials this week, we've discussions with 3 companies, and they've come out and they've had our guys out driving around the new facility and these machines and what they can do. So we're doing some preliminary talk, so we can bring something back later, right?
I think that's responsible for all our districts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, you know, other things are, again, you know, what other areas are you may be interested in us pursuing? Like, we're doing quite a bit of good work for accessibility, like Wild Rose. Are there other areas? Do we want to promote parks or more water access, or, you know, just, if you have any ideas, bring them there or bring them forward to a new one there, and we'll price it out and see what the impacts are. Now, there's one service I feel we should.
Excuse me, I'm Councillor Vino. I was gonna say your button's not on, so.
There you go.
There you are, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, you know, you sort of expanded my thinking on this. Like, I never considered that we could have a dual-purpose sidewalk, trail maintenance machine, like that's, if we could do that, we have, both our trail network and our sidewalk network are increasing a lot over these last 10 years.
Yes.
Probably close to double. Maybe not quite, but, you know, I could see that really working. You know, I wouldn't be bashful. I would wanna, if that's a pretty exciting option, I think, to, I think that would add a lot of value.
Yeah. And something else, like, you know, just shared service, like maybe the village would need some brush cutting or something. Well, then we got the machine, we can price that out. Maybe there's a swap with transportation. Maybe they can't get into, you know, cut this hedges back for race week and that, and then we swap it off or work something out, price it out, right? There's lots of opportunities, I think, there, right? We won't know all of them till we start, but I think, you know, we'll bring back some numbers and say, let's give it a try, right? See what we can do, yeah.
Councillor Cooley.
Thank you. The concept of it projectively purchasing such a vehicle, would it eliminate the subcontracting eventually? It would be something that, once the staff.
We'd have to have a look at that
Yeah,
first, just to see, is it,
transitioning period over to see if,
Yeah.
you know, if it's feasible for staff to. be
That's
able to
right, because then
service
whether
these
the
machines and
contractors,
main-
like,
Yeah.
when do they retire? What's their plan, right?
So it's a partnership. It's a proposed partnership at this
Right
point.
now, have a
Yeah.
look at it there, right? You
Yeah.
know, like, they do all they can, but you know
Sure.
what if someone doesn't bid one year? Uh-oh, right? We better, maybe no one will bid this year.
Yes.
Then we're really scrambling, right? But
Yeah.
we're kind of, we want to price it out, have a little peak, get the guys used to it in case, right?
Yeah,
And then
I
there'll be
know that peop-
mistakes made, but, you
Yeah,
know.
people are obviously
yeah.
using sidewalks because they're available where they weren't before, but the
Yeah.
trail has been utilized like nothing before.
This is a
I
great
mean,
trail. They
every
do a
time
lot
it's-
of good work there, yeah.
The trail,
Yeah.
you know, obviously, and it's a way to commute to work, you know, and whatnot,
Yeah.
where it's maintained so well, so, that sounds like a great,
Yeah, and they're
great
fussy
proposal.
if we rent a flail mower and it starts making it look ugly, the guys won't use it, so we'll have to see, right?
Fred, I'd just like to ask, you mentioned the contract, so is it a possibility that you can put out a one-year contract for that? Or is it usually, because that's what I'm thinking, are you gonna put it out for 3 years, or?
Maybe it's one and negotiations for a second if necessary.
Yeah,
and
because
maybe
we
just-
should have an out of some sort.
Yeah, maybe just
No.
negotiate the ones that are now, just can you do it another year, what is your price? Or like, we could put it out, which is probably
Yeah.
fair, because maybe there's a new person out there we don't know about, right? I don't know.
Gives us some flexibility. Thank
Yeah,
you.
everyone did their best for us, I feel, right?
Yeah.
You know, that lots
Sure.
of things, I know it's machines or whatever, right? But I think this would be better for the residents, right?
Councillor Connors, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we're all excited about the idea or the discussion around
Yeah.
this equipment and multi-use and shared services and all that. One thing, which then goes back to comments earlier in the meeting around our provincial roads, or not our provincial roads, but I guess it's, we are. But under the considerations, in terms of that discussion, your comments, what level, if any, would be expected on provincial roads, including those in the village? My comments to myself coming into this meeting was there are a lot of provincial roads in the municipality, and there are many, I would think, all areas have concerns around intersection and bushes and clearance and so on. So that's where my comfort level would be when we talk about this piece of equipment and specifically the use, potentially with the provincial stuff. And you know, just mentioned there around if highways aren't able to get to maybe some bush clearing, we know Chester Race Week is coming up, things like that. So that would be, you know, again, the service throughout the municipality with all of our communities.
It's a potential,
So I
like,
think
we
it's
can
exciting. I
price
think
it
it's a-
out so we have
I
a
do.
look,
I think it's a
right?
great
Yeah.
opportunity, a great discussion that we're having.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah,
just,
for all areas.
we're gonna have to expand, we're gonna get, you know, we don't have a lot of roads now, but we will. And we gotta start building our empire, so to speak,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Just,
yeah. Right
having a
on.
look, yeah.
Right on, thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Yeah, and I just, before you continue, I've been saying for a few years now that our public works staff are the guys out on the front lines all the time. I'm not disparaging any of the staff, but people actually can see what's going on there. And we're gonna, I'm a firm believer, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I agree with Andre. That we, at some point in the future, I mean, I may not be here, some of us may not be around the table, but I can see us having be able to do a lot of stuff in-house with our public works staff.
Yeah.
I see that. I mean, you just see how everything is growing in our municipality with trails and sidewalks, and, it gets to a point where, you gotta weigh, you know, what you're paying to have it done. And the great thing about having your own stuff is you're on your schedule, not somebody else's. So I think you have to take that in consideration too. And that's not a lot of times. People look at all dollars and cents, but the convenience of able to have your own equipment to do it when you want to do it is a big factor.
Yeah, and you have to look at staffing and so on, but, you know, we can get some homework done, and I say, okay, then we could do this with this many staff, and look at those costs, and then,
Yep.
you know, then maybe the contractors, if it come to a point where the lead, well, they're the backup, right? Or we still have some kind of partnership, because we enjoy working with them, and, you know, but, like, maybe if one of them retires, all of a sudden, we're doing it, right? So, we had to plan for it, right, and it's a partnership for now, for sure, right?
Okay, Fred, continue.
And again, any other ideas you have, bring them forward, and we can price them out to a direction from council. But, one area I feel we should probably discontinue is the marine boat pump. We, looked at that as, directed in the capital improvement plan, investment plan, and it'll be about 25 grand. That should hopefully fix the pump, right? It should be the right thing, but before it had the current system had the problems, we only get about 3 or 4 requests a year, and they were always evenings and weekends, and Lord knows where our guys are gonna be there. If it is after hours, well, then they're coming in for a call out. We don't charge for it. It's a small volume, but, you know, they're not charged. The volume does get treated in our plants. And, you know, you cannot get anything back for 25 grand, that should hopefully work. And the condition of the shed, I mean, maybe we look at just removing it, like was an option in the capital investment plan. And maybe that's an area for, I don't know, an accessible ramp or something, I don't know, for beautification, right? So.
Councilor Vino?
I agree. I think that we should not just not invest in it, but we should remove it. Prior to removing it, we should offer it, if the village wants to offer this service, you can make the offer, I think, maybe. But if they choose to decline, I think we should just remove it. And there are a number of private sector facilities that can serve that purpose just fine.
Yeah, they're
So
better set up for that.
that's what they do. So, you know, I think removing it makes sense. And, you know, someday in the future, maybe some future government will decide they want to have this as a service we offer to the public. But at this point, I don't see a real need for it, frankly.
Yeah.
I think we would probably bring back an RFD just to finalize it and get a motion from
Sure.
council, just so that
Yeah.
it's on the books that this is a service we're discontinuing.
Right?
Councilor Bremner?
Thank you, Deputy Warden. I agree fully. I've had people in the resident community ask what the building is. You know, it's starting to be maybe not the greatest looking building in the area, and definitely cleaning that up would be something I could support too, and I believe most people would. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred?
That was the end of that one.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Any more questions on this? All right, Fred, you can move along to your next agenda piece.
All right, the next one's also the child of the capital investment plan, and that's when you're looking at the new public works facility and administration buildings, right? And since that first came out, we looked at a number of different properties, and we ended up with an existing for the public works. And we also looked at the GM plastic site for maybe here. But right now, you know, a lot of this came from that options analysis that was prepared by the consultant. And they looked at basically areas and which area can be in each building, but there wasn't really a good floor plan or anything to that. So before we go to the next stage, we want to get some direction from council that we could bring back in an RFD. Do you want us to go out for a fully developed floor plan? And then have that floor plan look at the new facility, how much public engagement. We look at an existing facility like GN, look at the link here again, once we have the floor plan. Or like there's other properties that we own or vacant properties or properties that may come up. do we look at a standalone facility on that? So there's lots of areas where this can go, and we just want to have that conversation before I start pumping out any RFP.
Tara?
Yeah, I just want to also add that we think an important component before we get to any sort of floor plan or concept plan is, there could be at some point a public engagement, but more importantly, we need to engage with our staff and do
Exactly.
a needs assessment to really, like, before you go to a concept plan, what do we need for space, all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so we think that that would best be done by some sort of architecture firm, so that they could then use that to develop a program and space plan that for us, and then develop the concept from there.
Exactly. The rough work has been done, but we need to look at better details and, get the full engagement by the staff, get the different ideas, public engagement. Are there some other areas that they would want to look at for a facility, right,
Councilor Vino,
Thank you.
I'm going to leave your microphone on full time.
The Public Works building was that we now, I think, own. I think that worked out well. I think it's the right location to have a facility like that. And as we previously have discussed in this sitting, the future of the municipality, we're going to become more and more busy. There's going to be more infrastructure needs, more treatment plants, more sewer to maintain, more roads, more sidewalks, more need to lay down equipment and have a yard and a place to bring trucks and all this sorts of
Yeah.
thing. And the facility is large. It has the ability to bring equipment in to repair it and lay down equipment and protect it, and it's very strategically located right next to the RCMP station, which is, again, another nice benefit when you have all kinds of expensive equipment and materials that you want to protect. So I see a lot of benefits to that site. I do not, however, think that it might not be the best location for a municipal building. I'm not terrifically sentimental, but I do think that we should try, if we're thinking to the future for our future municipal building, that would probably not be located on this particular site because it's pretty, obviously, it's already developed. So how do you make a new one here? So we're not the municipality of Windsor Road, or we are the municipality of Chester, and we have to acknowledge that that is the nucleus of our community, although sometimes it can raise some of the hair on your back. But I think that it should be somewhere within the network of sidewalks and sewer and all that stuff that we would have reaching out from our village core. We are currently investing money in the vision and the idea of a recreational complex that is going to have a massive budget. And that complex will no doubt also share similar values in terms of centrality in our municipality and accessibility for all of our residents, as we would want to have for our municipal building. And though I agree that it would be great to dive into trying to find out what a floor plan would be if we want to envision a new building, we're going to be doing the exact same exercise very soon for a potential new recreational complex, which this council has agreed to begin like public relations campaign to engage our community on this future complex. And it just would seem out of step to just move independently of that activity and decide that we want to build another remote facility in a vacuum without considering that this new vision of this potential new facility could potentially be also the home for a new municipal building if we were to construct one. So if it were me, I would like to pause this until we know a bit more about where this rec facility is going to go. I feel like moving public works staff out of this building is gonna give a small, it will alleviate the congestion a little bit for a little time, and maybe give us enough of a breather for us to actually put some thought into whether we would want to have a shared facility. And I think there could be some real benefits there, as I already said. So I guess that's where I sit on this at this point.
Councillor Connor.
Thank you. So way back when we did chat about a new municipal build, and I don't have my stuff in front of me, the Public Works Department, Manny, came in with a chart of options. And some of those options did include marrying up with what was at the time the potential of a new rec facility idea, but also to ensuring space or office locations for partnerships, provincially and federally, of course, and also service providers and so on, like visiting offices, of course, we all know that. So I'd almost like to go back and look at that too, because unless those funding programs changed a great deal, I believe that the research that was done at that time, there was opportunity when we married up with other organizations or other uses, that there was a much lower percent requirement for our investment. If I look at that, if I visualize that chart, because there were provincial and federal sources of funding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I can't speak to that, I don't have it in front of me, but we all had it at one time, we all have it in our files. Second question, that wasn't really a question, just my memory, was how much land, again, do we own? Like, I know that when we chatted in the final days of the new location up in behind the RCMP station, I think the narrative provided was that there's space there if we wanted to look at. So we have space there, right? We have the acreage?
Yeah, we have, there's 11 1/3 acres.
okay.
What, about 7 or so are
Yeah.
usable? And then whether that be for equipment down back or whatever, there
Yeah.
could be room up front.
Yeah.
But they should probably be like a second story at least to make it work for an admin building,
Yeah,
but
thank you.
there's potential, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I know that in some of the other municipal units, and giving the example of the municipality district of Lunenburg, people would argue the fact, and also the municipality of the County of Kings, both of those moves, geographic moves, were out into the more rural areas, if you will. And people will argue with me, and their words back to me right now would be, is the fact that in both of those municipal units, they were located, Modal was located in the town of Bridgewater limits, and municipality of the County of Kings was located in the town of Kentville limits. But for the taxpayer going in to pay their taxes, moving around in the community, going to, our health center or the Valley Regional Hospital or whatever, it doesn't really matter. That's not an argument for me. Like, my argument and my thinking would be for the ease of the resident who wants to go visit and frequent their municipal unit. So I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of that, not necessarily in the downtown. Well, it's not a lot, some. So 2 examples, Modal and Municipality of Kings moved outside of the downtowns.
Yeah, and a
So
lot
I'm
of that-
thinking about that.
Yeah, a lot of that too, like, they're a separate municipality paying taxes to another municipality, and then a lot of the areas developed, so where do you have to go? Yeah.
Yeah, no, but.
Yeah, and then some of the considerations too, what we're looking at for direction is to try to have something more design-ready if we do get funding opportunities, right? Then we just hand it over to Jonathan and he takes care of it, right?
Councillor Vino.
And those 2 examples you cited, those particular municipalities don't actually have a nucleus. Like, if you think of the municipality district of Lunenburg, it's a collection of outlying communities, but they're trying to create one in Cookville, but
Yeah.
prior to that, there is no center. There never has been. So I would argue that we probably have one that's right in our name.
Yeah, I don't know where they're even looking for it. Sharon, you might know. What are they looking for a location for the new recreation facility? Any ideas?
Yep. Yeah, the rec facility committee is just starting to meet. They're putting together discussions around what a proposal would look like to do design and concept, but no location so far.
So I mean, I wonder, it might, I mean, if, you know, we're still in initial stages here, but I mean, if there's consensus around the table that we may look at something, some model of incorporating the municipal office with this facility, I would think they would like to know. I would think, I mean, it sounds like a great idea. But again, it's where it would be located. You know, because let's face it, this new facility, we're gonna have some involvement financially, as well as, so I mean, and it's gonna be financially for the new build for us too. So it may be certainly a way to kill maybe two birds with one stone. I'm just thinking out loud. Anyway, Warden Weber.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind exploring that option. I think it's, you know, it's used by others and all that kind of stuff, but it's the time frame that concerns me the most.
That was the concern
You
to
know, like
staff.
how much time do we have to meet the standards that we have to do for accessibility and all that? Because we're a ways off of building the new rink. That's all.
Yeah, and that is one of the
That's the only
considerations
concern I have.
from a staff perspective is, yes, we're going to be freeing up 5 desks, 6 desks next door. Potentially you could fit 1 or 2 others in there, but we've already got them full. We've already got those full. We might have 1 or 2 other spaces. And then you also have to look at this building versus the building next door and how full are they, and adding another development officer to the team. And so you can't split that team up. We've looked at all different kinds of options to try and deal with space. So even though we've got a little bit of space freed up, we still are at an absolute maximum capacity, especially if you consider the planning department and building department.
Just.
Counselor, sorry.
Well, I was not quite done.
Oh, sorry.
She answered.
Sure.
Yeah, I just wondered, is there any additional space at our new facility?
No,
Okay.
every office has been accounted for. And then there's an open space there that also has desks in it, and they're all accounted for as well.
Yeah, it's set up well for our expansion in the future, yeah.
Counselor Bremner.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. I don't want to muddy the waters, but I think when we talk about the potential rec facility, the steering committee is well aware of the old facility is on borrowed time. And Councillor Church may want to correct me on this, but based on challenges with the building and insurance demands and controls, and there may be a short window there too. So I think we should be looking at a combined possibility and not delaying, because the more we delay, I can tell you where the municipality is going to end up if we don't already have it in our minds with a rec facility. It's going to be very much about us. We've had many gifts in the municipality, and we are not going to get a new facility as a gift this time, and that's just the way it's going to work, and we're going to have to realize that. So I really believe that the more we debate on how quick we have to do it, we're losing valuable time, because we are in a crunch on both areas. This building, from my belief, is not accessibly well put together in any means. It was built 50, 60 years ago. It was good then. It is not now. You know, you go to the washrooms here, you got to pretty well be a magician to get in through the door sideways, and turn around and not do much more than short work duty. So we have to think about this, and we have to move. So I would encourage council to really put on the progression of movement with sensible thinking. Thank you.
Counselor Connors.
First, I want to thank Councillor Vino for pointing out the idea around nucleus of activities and the downtown and other reasons why people would be frequenting, if you will, their municipal unit. So my 2 examples that I gave, I'm still okay with, but thank you. I appreciate your discussion around nucleus. I appreciate that. But mostly what I want to comment on is I appreciate, I'm not going to say councillors, Sharon, Allen, and Tom's comments here around timing and the current state of the rec facility that we have now, because that's important to the entirety of this municipality, all ages, all ages. So I think we need to have discussions and giddy up, yeah.
Tara?
Yeah, appreciate the thought of combining them, and it's a great thought. If we're going to do that, when the RFD does go out for design around that, I think we would want to incorporate some of the, the possibility of a shared complex and some of that staff engagement in there, because I still think that's important. So I don't want to end up with a design for a new rec facility that then doesn't include the design for the municipal building facilities and having done that engagement with staff as well. So I just want to flag that on the.
We at least need to know the size, right? You've got to figure that out, right? And then-
And I think it's critical that we do staff engagement with that.
Okay,
Counselor?
do that first then.
Church?
Thank you, Warden Asaph. I'll just be quick, but regarding Church Memorial Park and that existing site, it requires ongoing maintenance. The roof is not fixed. To repair that would cost, and it will cost, millions. I mean, they're doing what they can. It's like a stopgap measure.
Yeah.
To keep it open. Their goal is that they don't want to lose the programs and people that use it. Because if they didn't do what they did to the roof, it would have to be closed now. And by having the monitoring, whatever, they can keep it open. But it's requiring more and more maintenance, is correct. And, they're just trying to keep it open. And I know that they're going to be back here asking for money because they just don't have the funds, what they get through, the user groups for revenue and the grant that they get from the Pew Trust. It's just not enough to operate and to do the major maintenance requests that are required with an aging facility. And just the structure of the roof, the wooden beams, I don't need to go on, they'll come in and talk about it, but it's just to be able to keep it open in the interim.
I know that we're, on a sort of a provincial timeline of 2030. But I'll guarantee you that they will extend that. There's gonna be a lot of municipalities that aren't even there or are close. That's my own personal opinion. With the way the provincial and federal governments work, they'll always, they may extend it for a year. But, there's no easy answer here. It's gonna cost a lot of money. And I think, and as I said before, if municipal buildings set aside, if we're gonna talk about the recreation facility, that has to be conveyed to the taxpayer. It has to be, because this is gonna be a legacy piece for taxpayers. And everybody wants, we all want. But when you ask them to pay, and that's why I looked at a lot of the survey questions on, what would you like to have? Well, I'd like to have a Porsche, but I can't afford it. But, so who's gonna pay? And I think it all starts there. I really do. Once they do their assessment of what roughly it's gonna cost, they'll have a Class D estimate. Then you go to the taxpayer and say, listen, this is what it's gonna cost. If we don't do that, I will have no part of that decision-making. I will, and I know that's off topic, but that's just me. Yeah, the impact. Anyway, sorry, Fred, go ahead.
No, we just,
Yep.
we're here for the next steps on the Min facility, and we really need the staff engagement.
We'll do that first, at least
Right.
once we know what we need, we'll have a better idea whether it fits with the new rec facility.
Yeah.
Tara?
Yeah, we would need to give, we'll come back with an RFD based on this, because we'd need to give some thought on what that looks like. Usually that would be the consultant that would be doing the layout, and so if you're already hiring a consultant to do some of that work for the rec facility, then the question becomes, do you do it as a standalone? What we don't want to have happen is, do it as a combined facility in one building, have done the layout for a new municipal building, and then at the end of the day, there's a decision not to proceed with the rec facility because of the cost or whatever that might be, and then we're back to square one and 2 years behind on a new municipal building. So we need to give a little thought to how that would be structured in the consultation process. Because it would be us doing that.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned with attaching it to the rec facility just for that purpose, because we haven't came to a final conclusion on whether or not we're gonna fund it. But when I think about it a little further, I think that we are gonna be involved in building a new rec facility. It's just a question of how significant will the facility be, I think, is you know. So I think that, one way or the other, we're going down the road, because we're not gonna just close up the rink and have nothing. But I mean, when they're talking about swimming pools and indoor tracks and 2 ice surfaces instead of 1, some of those things may change based on public input and what they're prepared to pay for, I guess.
Councilor Vino?
That's all I can say.
And part of the effort on the rec facility would be a needs assessment for obviously all of the recreational offerings in consultation with the public. Adding the, you know, the needs for a municipal facility would not put us at square one, because all of those needs and all that information and all of the potential requirements for space and all that stuff would be the same whether the rec facility died or not. So I see no threat there at this point at the fuzzy level, planning level. So I fail to see the downside in considering it as if you're gonna build 2 very expensive buildings at probably very close to the same time, that I don't know why we wouldn't think about putting them together.
Back to the concept.
All right,
Yeah.
great.
That's all you can do.
No, that's
Are
it.
you, any more questions?
Yeah.
Fred, you got what you need?
I believe so, kinda, sorta, but there's RFDs coming your way, basically.
Okay.
All right,
I can't wait.
all right, sounds good.
Okay, let's move on.
That's it, we're finished.
Oh, that's everything?
I move we adjourn.
Good.
All those in favor?
Now, if this
Motion's carried, we're adjourned.
wherever Chad is,